to the show. We about to chop it up. Come to the show. We got some things we can talk about. Come to the show. We about to chop it up. Come to the show. We got some things we can talk about. Chop it up. Chop it, chop it, chop it, chop it up. Chop it. We got some things we can talk about. Chop it up. Chop it, chop it, chop it up. Chop it up. Chop it. We got some things we can talk about.
You are now tuned in to the Chop Shop with your host, Pastor Marvin McKenstry Jr. Let's chop it up.
Yo, I can't go no further, man. The new intro, I'm sorry, y'all. Listen, Shaka got me on one. That man, listen. Welcome to the Chop Shop. Welcome to the Chop Shop. I'm excited. I haven't been this excited about a show in a long time. Y'all see him sitting right there over my shoulder, what I call God's power couple. Mentors to me, Pastor Shelley and Antoine Burton are our guests tonight. But we're going to get to that. Before we get to that, I got to bring them on. My right hand and my left hand, my main man, Mr. Shaka Pitts on the ones and twos, making the magic happen. Brother, listen, the new intro. Fire, fire, fire.
You like
brother.
that, good brother? You like that?
Oh, my God. Like is an understatement. I like it more. Now, I seen the video in all transparency to everybody. I seen the video, but seeing it in context, boy, a whole nother level, brother. Whole nother level. That's when you got the right producer, the right homeboy, your brother in your corner. He goes, and that was unsolicited, y'all. He just did that on his own. But Shock, man, I'm excited. I'm excited about where we going, the direction we going, and particularly excited about tonight's show.
Listen, man. You know, we've had both these individuals on, like, you know, individually, right, single, just by themselves, but in the power there was just bananas. So to watch what's gonna happen with this Voltron segment tonight, man. Like,
Yes, sir.
It's about to be powerful, man. I'm excited. Got my mom on tuned in. Hey, mom, how you doing? It's gonna be a good show, man.
Yes, it is. We are coming to you live on Facebook, YouTube. I think just those two platforms. But the important thing is that you like, love, and share. Listen, even go in the comments and tag people who need to be here for this conversation, because tonight we are going to be talking about the necessity of having love and purpose. When you in the kingdom of God, especially kingdom leadership, you can't walk this journey with just anybody. You can't do this work with just anybody. And I have probably my favorite couple in the kingdom of God with us tonight. But before we get to that, man, let's get to these church announcements, because I want to cut right to the show tonight. Y'all see it, the Stop the Beef hotline. We always promoting it and pushing it because it's important. It's a great work that we do, and it's a necessity here in the city of Baltimore. Y'all know, y'all heard those great numbers, 36 murders in 31 days in January. If it wasn't for the work that we doing here, there would have been more. Boots on the ground engagement, the We Are Us men's movement, making it happen. We need y'all to contact us to let us know where we need to be. The Baltimore Peace Agreement has been making the rounds for over a year now, and it's in just about every corner of the city. But if you know you haven't seen it or heard it in your neighborhood, contact the We Are Us men's movement, www.weareusmovement.org, so that we can come to where you are and bring this life-saving agreement. The brothers that are signing off are keeping their word that even if they got to eat out in the streets until we can change that dynamic, they don't have to kill out in the streets. Let's keep them rolling tonight, Shot, because we got quite a few. We are looking for you. If you're looking for a job, listen, man, the agency is expanding. The Mayor's Office of Employment Development. My brother Tavon Thomas is in place as the new director of the Westside Youth Opportunity Center. I'm so excited about this. That brother's passionate. We literally come up together. We grew up together. And I'm excited about this, man, because he gets it. He has great vision. So our young people, the service that we've been providing to them is going to go to another level. I need y'all to make sure y'all contacting with us, because our focus is on economic justice while we make sure we're building a workforce system in Baltimore that actually works. I had the privilege of stepping out with the Squeegee Initiative, meeting Deputy Mayor Faith Leach on yesterday. I was so excited about that work, man. We went down to President and Lombard, one of the busiest squeegee corners in Baltimore, brought a lot of resources down there. My guy, of course, Dr. Bunley, was there some of the regulars, my man Rodell Hall, we was out there and we were able to engage them brothers, meeting them right where we are, because that's what we do. Let's keep it rolling. Unity in our community engagement walk, February the 21st. I don't even know if I sent these to Shaka in order, but write the dates down. February the 21st at 6 p.m. We're going to be starting at the Lord's Church. Y'all seen the bishop on here. I think it was 2 weeks ago. We had Bishop Kevia Elliott on here. We're going to be kicking it off at his church, 5010 Park Heights Avenue. We've kind of sat down home base up in the 21215, and great work is happening up there. And you're going to see the difference. Let's keep it going. All right, all right, all right. If you fed up, show up February the 14th. Now, I don't know. Y'all ain't going to see me at this one. That's right. Y'all ain't going to see me at this one. I got a little date or something that night. Mind your business. Stay out my business. But you won't see me at this one. But come on out. All you brothers that ain't got nothing to do. Come out to the community engagement walk. We're going to be down in West Baltimore, right down in the Druid Heights, Penn North community at the fabulous Dr. Kevin Daniels Church. He's our guest on the show next week at 6 p.m. Make sure you show up if you fed up. Yeah, I ain't grown, Shaq. I ain't grown. I'm just going to do a little something, step out or something. Don't put a little shoe on or something, look good. Some cologne. All right, another community engagement walk. Listen, y'all, we out in these streets. February the 19th, 2022, 12 noon. Remember, these are our Saturday walks, and ladies, you are invited. We're going to be at 4505 Liberty Heights Avenue, Calvin M. Rodwell Elementary Middle School. Come on out there. There's been some work happening up there on the wrong side. We're going to come and bring that light that we bring to the community when it's time for us to shine where the darkness has tried to reign. All right. February the 26th, y'all. Listen, this stuff is put down. Langston Hughes Business and Resource Center at 5011 Ricerstown Road is going to be the kickoff for this one. I need everybody to show up for that one. It's another one of those Saturdays. We're going to have everybody. Listen, y'all, when you see community engagement walk, there are resources and everything else that are going to be right there in the building or right there with us as we walk in the community. So I need you there. All right. The relaunch. Let me tell you, man, I love this man of God, Donnie Neal, man. He's one of the most selfless brothers I know in the kingdom. I said selfless, not selfish. And what he's doing, a very dear friend of his, we know Pastor Brandon Leak launched the Impulse Church, and he went through some health challenges, and he's still fighting his way back. So what Bishop Donnie Neal did is got with his wife and the people in his congregation, and they are doing a relaunch of the Impulse Church. The great Marissa Farrow is going to be the guest speaker. I'm going to need everybody to show up to support this work. The man of God is still fighting, and we still believe. Brandon, we love you, brother. Keep hanging in there and doing what you got to do. We're going to make sure that we have your back out here. All right? February the 27th at 5:30 p.m. It's going to be out 611 Marlin Avenue in the Essex community at the Netbreakers Church. All right, man. If I seemed like I was rushing, I was. I'm gonna be straight up with y'all. We normally put a 10-minute window on them announcements, but I wanted to get to this conversation tonight. And just to give you a little bit of background, like I said earlier, it is important. It is important that we live and love in purpose, especially those of us that are in the kingdom of God. This is a kingdom platform. I know the name might not sound like it, but we are committed to bringing kingdom information from great kingdom leaders on this platform. I don't know what nobody else doing, and I ain't mad at them. And one of the things that we want to make sure that we're talking about, especially with Monday coming, with the Valentines holiday and all of that, that we are helping people to understand, man, when you're doing this, everything has to be committed to God, even the choices that we make in who we choose to walk this life with. And tonight I have one of my favorite couples on. They are mentors to me. They embrace me. They love on me. I can talk to either one of them at any given time. And I love what God is doing with them and establishing and building a culture of believers specific to what vision and what God is doing in their church. Their great ministry is the Changing Lives Ministry of Baltimore. And I've had the honor and privilege of being able to be right there to receive, to sit at the table and feast. When it came down to my church, Pastor Antoine Burton has been readily available to me, whether it was establishing my man cave or putting in place my morning huddle, some of the things that's happening right there at CLM. And when it came down to establishing our prayer ministry and our women's ministry, Pastor Shelley Carter Burton was right there. So without further ado, I want to bring to the screen my mentors, my great friends, the pastors of the Changing Lives Ministries of Baltimore, Pastor Shelley Carter Burton and Pastor Antoine Burton. Man, listen, thank y'all for accepting this invitation. I'm so excited that y'all are here with us tonight.
Absolutely, we're honored to be with you, Marvin. Thank you, man. We appreciate all that you do for the city of Baltimore and all the outlets that you serve. And you're an amazing man of God that do more than just church. You serve in community, you serve in government. And certainly we appreciate the work that God has called you to do and to serve here in the city of Baltimore.
Well, I'm grateful, man, that for a lot of that work, I've gotten the opportunity to be able to walk beside you. Even 5-6 years ago, before it was filmed, publicized, or anything, going into the juvenile detention center, being right there with the people who need the word are. And when you got brothers like that, you can't help but try to commit yourself to doing the right thing. And tonight we here to have what I believe is a conversation that's not had enough, as we talk about what it's like to live, serve, walk in ministry together. Let me tell y'all something, man. I asked God to do two things to help me get two things right. That's ministry and marriage. I had never been married before, never been a pastor before. And God literally closes doors before he allows me to go riding off the rails. But I want to get to you guys tonight. Talk to us about how important it is that when you have this mandate on your life, or when you've made the decision that you're going to serve God, that you don't neglect or ignore that you can't, the idea that you can't just walk with anybody in that walk.
I think it's very important to know who you believe God has called you to connect with. Covenant is so very important, especially when you're not only in covenant in marriage, but also in covenant in ministry. Your spouse has the power to either make or break the ministry. So it's very important that, again, covenant is strong. When God first gave us the vision back in 2012, told my wife about it, shared it with us. Said, well, I believe God, this is what God has called us to do, to launch the ministry. Didn't say nothing else more about it. And we got into consecration January 2013 at our home church where we served at. And my wife said, well, babe, you haven't said anything for a whole year about what God has said, dude. When are we going to move on it? And so I talked about Bishop, and we got the green light to be released to do what we were called to do. My wife said, well, babe, the only way we're going to do this, the only way I'm on board is that the marriage and the family has to be first. Be a strong friend. She says, if you want my support, family and marriage has to be first. This is where your primary focus needs to be. While we know that we're both going to be called to build ministry, our marriage and our family is first. So I absolutely believe that there ought to be balance in marriage, especially when you're serving in ministry with your spouse. There must be balance. Archbishop Ralph Dennett says like this, make sure that your spouse is the main thing. When you're pastoring, don't commit adultery with your spouse. Don't commit adultery with the church. The church belongs to Christ. The church belongs to Christ. Your wife or your husband belongs to you. And it's very important that you don't commit all of your time. You don't commit all of your love. You don't commit all of your resources to the church, and you're giving your family, your wife, or your household less than or half than. And it's very important to understand that even as pastors, our family is the first priority. You see so many pastors and so many marriages that are not working because there's a power struggle where the husband, who's ever leading or who's ever pastoring, they give more attention, more focus to the ministry, which I think is the wrong thing to do. And then you cause your spouse to go lacking in the background. So God has allowed us to have a strong balance in marriage, being able to know when it's time to cut away and make sure that family and marriage has a strong focus and not just ministry.
I will add that when we got married, we knew each other for well over 30 years before we even got married. But when we did get married, we got married, and a year later, we're starting a church. And so it was so important and so poignant that we knew that we had to make each other the priority over the church, because now the church becomes our baby.
Mm.
People become our babies. And because of it, we have had to find moments to completely steal away because it is so easy to put all your focus in what God has given you in a way of a vision and make that first. If you are not intentional about your interaction with your spouse, I mean, literally, you can be on date nights and receive calls. You have to make a decision whether I'm going to answer that call in the moment or whether I'm going to enjoy this present moment. And so the first couple of years, it was a bit of a struggle because neither of us want to disappoint God. But disappointing God is disappointing your spouse. And I think we forget that in ministry. We forget that because we tend to think we have this assignment in ministry and our family is second. That is not true.
That's not it.
Biblical. That is not biblical, and God doesn't honor it. As a matter of fact, in the Word of God, it talks about husbands honoring their wives and wives honoring their husbands. That whole submission piece means completely giving of yourself, pulling away from your birth mother and your father to become one. You can never become one if something else is priority over your spouse.
That's an awesome declaration to make because I hear a lot of people that get that out of order. One of the things that I always tell people is when you start talking about that marriage, that's the only relationship in life that you say till death do us part. Your children will grow old, find their own path. Your parents, you are told by the Bible to pull away from. And then here we come. And like you say, we're connected to and we're giving birth to this new thing called the church. We have seen many, many people preach their way right out of marriage. I it's documented. We've seen many people preach their way out of marriage. But one of the things I love about you guys is that you're so available that not only is your marriage the foundation of anything you're going to do in ministry, it's also one of the things that God has blessed us in the kingdom with to have the accessibility and availability to you guys to see your example. How do you feel knowing that your marriage is one of, if not the greatest, I'm trying to put my words together, greatest aspect of your public ministry?
That is key because I firmly believe that before people even hear from what comes out of our mouth, or before people can even receive from us, they see us.
See us, yeah.
They see us. And one of the things that we have been so consistent in doing is being transparent. Yes, there are some things that the world does not need to know, but then there are things that they do need to know because we have hid them or the church has hid them for so long with big hats, makeup, rhinestone suits, and things like that, but you're not happy at home. And so for us, our accessibility to the people is what we literally were called to do. Change the narrative that you can be married and unhappy, to change the narrative that you can be the head of the church and fulfilling your assignment, but your marriage is crumbling. I do believe that we were called to be transparent in many areas. And how can you be transparent if you're not available? And so my husband and I are extremely available to those that are assigned to us, and even people outside of Changing Lives Ministries. We've counseled several couples throughout Christendom and beyond. And we are very open and honest about certain things that we know will help other people's marriage ministry, so to speak. I think, Pastor Marvin, I think that down through the years, it has been the practice that people ascribe to the old adage that says, what happens in our house stays in our house. And that has gotten a lot of pastors, leaders, pastors' wives, first ladies, sitting in a seat of I'm hiding behind my feelings.
You know the interesting thing, Pastor, it's never hidden. I can tell you when he stand up there talking about until the one God gave me. She's a black and she's sitting there looking like nigga, please. I see it all the time. I'm like, oh my God, like it's never. I'm sorry for cutting you off, but it's never really hidden. Go ahead, Pastor. I'm sorry.
It's so that the balance remains strong in marriage, and the reason being, I know on my coming up and my upbringing in church, for me personally, there were not a lot of strong examples of marriage. Yeah, you had a lot of people that were married in the pulpit, a lot of leaders and pastors and bishops, they were married, but you didn't really see the example of marriage. They carried marriage in title, but you spending all your time in church and with everybody else, and not with your husband or with your wife. So we see that. And my thing is, I thank God for my wife because there has to be balance. When we go out, I'm not looking for Pastor Shelley to go out. I'm looking for Shelley with my baby, but I'm not looking for you to be first lady or the preacher when we go out. I'm looking for you to be who I married, be my wife, be that person where I can be raw and have a great time, enjoy myself. We're not wearing collars when we go out on a date. We're not bringing a Bible in a bottle of oil. I mean, come on. I want to be able to enjoy my time when I go out with my wife. When we on the beach and I'm putting my feet in sand, I want to be able to enjoy my wife. We ain't preaching sermons. We're not having a prayer revival on the beach. So I want to be able to enjoy my time with my wife. So there must be balance and there must be separation. There has to be.
That's one of the things I do love about your marriage because I've seen both of you guys minister and you babe right from the pulpit. You can just kind of tell when it's authentic. And I think that those are the examples that have gotten a lot of preachers or young preachers in trouble because I was one of those that they told if you're going to pastor, you got to get, even though God called me while I was not yet married, you got to get a wife. And I almost married somebody that is not who I ever should have married. I was not being told to trust God. You know that God will provide. You need to get a wife. You need to get a wife. You need to get a wife. When you in that place that you're considering ministry or any aspect of wanting to connect on that level with somebody, and when I say on that level, I mean in the place of marriage or whatever. What would you say to that person that's coming to you? If I came to you guys in 2017 and said, hey, I'm getting ready to be installed, consecrated, ordained, whatever was the process, and everybody keep telling me I got to get a wife, what would y'all have said to me?
I know for me personally, you came to us at that point. I'm not worrying about how gifted you are. I'm not worrying about how talented you are. I'm not worrying about how well you can preach, how well you can hoop, how well you can sing. How was your life? How was your character? And that's very important for me to know, and because you have so many people that try to cover up character with gifts, that try to cover up who they are and who they're lacking to be with talent, with something that we think that looks like oil or looks like anointing. It's very important to know exactly what type of man you are, what type of woman you are. And while we definitely don't want to rush anybody into marriage, I think it's very important for people, and especially men and women that are called to the pastorate, that you deal with those proclivities before God gives you charge over other people. It's very important. I'm not saying rush into marriage. Absolutely not. But if you know as a man or as a woman that you are challenged with the flesh, if you are challenged with certain proclivities, I certainly would not cause you to rush in to a leadership role to where you are a shepherd and you're given responsibility and charge over people. Too often we see people pastoring folk because of how well they can preach or how well they can sing or who their name is. But is anybody looking at the life that they're living? Is anybody concerned about the character that they display? What type of man or what type of woman is this person? And a lot of times that get lost. That's what's getting lost. And it's very important that we slow down and take a look at that. So no, we certainly would not have rushed you into a covenant while it's something that we would have kept before you. Because certainly I honestly believe when you're married to the right one, ministry becomes easy. Ministry becomes easy. You have somebody to cover you from the attacks. You have somebody that's got your back. I tell my wife all the time, look, you got my last name. You know, she got my last name. I'm responsible for her, and she responsible. She belonged to me, so it's her job to cover me and to protect me. It's my job to cover her and protect her. It's nothing like going into an assignment with somebody that's going to stand toe to toe with you and fight every single attack. Man, I'm telling you, that's an amazing thing. Go ahead, baby. You jump in.
I knew he was going to say I got his last name. I'm sorry. Out there. But you said something that is so key. I mean, literally, the old church used to say you have to get married. You cannot be a single pastor. And what I've realized is that what's in me has the ability to cover him.
Yeah.
Somebody on the outside might not be able to cover him and likely could not, right? And so it is very key that you marry the person that God said, and not just somebody because you're trying to fill a void. Because everybody can't handle the attacks that come when you say yes to God and walk in your ordained assignment. And so it's very important that we truly understand. I'd rather somebody, I'm going to just say it like this. I'd rather somebody walk into their assignment in discipline than to marry and make a mistake. I'd rather somebody own the issues and the proclivities that they have and really work on them and try to walk it out and not marry somebody just because. And we've done that, unfortunately, historically in the church. Quite often you see that happen, and then years later, they're getting divorced. The divorce rates in the church are astronomical. Why is that? What did we marry for? Did God say they were your rib? Did God say that that was the person you should connect with? This happened before it happened. I'm going to just say that. This marriage happened before it happened. The years that we knew each other as friends or associates or acquaintances, it was already ordained in the heavenlies, or we did not do what we do now. And so I just firmly believe that our yes just can't be to anybody. It has to be to the person that the Lord has created to be yours. And so it's important that we make that distinction and know that anybody can't be connected to us. You could be making the worst mistake of your life in and out of the pulpit.
I wanted that was a perfect segue, because I want to talk about that place. Sometimes, you have the preacher marry the singer or worship leader, and then in some cases you had a preacher who marries the good saved person, and they try to force them to come. Both of you guys, we know, have a preaching, teaching mandate on your lives, and you guys have one of the more refreshing, what can I say, systems for ministry to work, being that both of you guys are very much called, ordained, and anointed. Talk to us about some of that functionality that you have, and what happens at CLM, and how important it is for people to really find even balance in that.
Yeah, that's good. You want to work with it?
Sure. I'll just say this. The first thing, if you are married and you're both in ministry, let me start here. I did not necessarily know that I was called to pastor. When we were intending to start the church, I was just really supporting my husband. I don't necessarily like being in the forefront and could quite honestly sit in the back. But it was my husband that said, absolutely not. You are called to pastor. You are going to pastor with me. We're going to pastor this ministry together, and we're going to grow it together. This is not about just me. It's about us and what God has called us to do. That brings me to my point. You have to know.
You sound like she's teaching.
Who
You sound like she's preaching.
your
Come on with it.
Yes, you have to know who your spouse is called to be, because there's a level of honor and respect that has to come from you. I have seen ministries where when one is called to do certain things and the other may not be, there is a level of jealousy or insecurity that peaks its ugly head. And so I would say the first thing that makes CLM works is the fact that we understand that we might be called in different areas of giftings, but because we're one, we have access to each other's giftings, right? And so we don't have to be envious. We don't have to be jealous. We can pull from what we are together, and each of us can execute, right? And we are extremely supportive of one another. If I am ministering out, because we both have very strong itinerant ministries, praise be unto God. If I'm ministering out and he has nothing else assigned on his calendar, he will come and support me, and vice versa. And we work altars together, and we minister to couples together. We minister to people together. So while we have very individualistic gifts and very different ministries, we bring them together. Changing Lives Ministries is what it is because we are one and we work together to make it work.
It's amazing, Marv, because sometimes, and you said it earlier, sometimes, especially when the pastor is a male, you tend to feel pressure to make your wife something that maybe she's not called to be. And you see people pushing their spouses and making them pastors or making them preachers. And if that's not their calling, it's not their calling, and be okay with that. But from day one, I had to make sure that, listen, my wife is a whole pastor. You know, she stands on her, she has her own anointing. She has her own ministry. And I wanted to make sure that I push that. Sometimes I still have to correct people when they come, when they don't know. It was thank God for the first lady. No, she's a pastor, bro. She's a whole pastor. She stands on her own feet. She's a whole pastor. And I have to make sure, especially in today's climate and culture, to where women are really not accepted in all cultures. It's very important for me that I push the fact and support my wife. She's a pastor, and I support that. Even when I'm going out to minister, my wife is there with me. And even at home church, I never minister to a woman without my wife present or another sister present. I'm not touching on a woman. I'm taking another woman's hand and either touching her belly or her back or whatever. Because as a male pastor, it's very important that I protect my integrity and my character, because people can take certain things the wrong way. So it's very important from day one that I pushed my wife. I supported my wife as being a whole pastor. She stands on her own 2 feet. I'm not intimidated by her. She's not intimidated by me. We are one. You know, we are one. Her last name is Burton, the same way my last name. We are absolutely one. And as I'll leave you with this, Marvin, as a matter of fact, some of the greatest sermons, and she's a powerhouse on her own. But some of the greatest sermons that we preach is when we preach together. I love when we get the opportunity. You want to preach together this month? So we're gonna preach together this month, probably next Sunday, because she's preaching this Sunday, so I'll probably preach next Sunday.
No, you promised to preach.
Oh, I did. Well, anyway, we'll talk about that. So we're gonna preach together next Sunday. We're gonna talk.
So how does that work? I know I got some insight, but I want the people to hear from y'all. How does that work when you both are home? You both are real pastors, not a pseudo or defrock pastor, and both you have strong prayer. What's the schedule in the house?
So this is great. This is good stuff. So on Mondays, my wife allows me. She calls me Malcolm X. She allows me to do my community. She allows me to do my community work with you, Pastor Marvin, and the other brothers around the city. And I want to say this from the onset when we first started. My wife gathered a plethora of women.
I remember.
They were praying for us and covering us while we were out in the community. My wife said, babe, you know, if it's okay with the brothers, I want to gather some prayer warriors while you guys are out in the community. I said, absolutely. So for a while, man, they were gathering by the dozens on the prayer line.
Yeah, I remember. Every
Monday night. So on Monday night, she allows me to do what I do. On Tuesdays, we have Bible study. Then on Wednesdays and Thursdays, whoever's preaching that Sunday, we're preparing. We're making sure that everything is set. Friday, we have our date nights. We have our date nights, and we're trying to be more intentional about being consistent. Like, I'm not going to accept any preaching engagements on Friday if I can help it. She's not going to, right? She's not, right? She's not going to accept any engagements on Fridays if she can help it. On Saturdays, it's our me time. I do all of my errands. She does all of her personal errands, barbershop, go to the store, whatever I need to do. We make sure that we have that me time available, and then we respect that. But we're both in the house by 3 p.m. every single Saturday so that we can be there for one another, but most importantly, making sure that whoever's preaching Sunday is focused. And then on Sunday, it's family day.
Man, listen, y'all, talk about the need for structure. You know, this is the thing that I'm clear on, right? As a father, one of the things that I did with my children is I was so excited about community work, pastoring, and all that. It was some times when I slid by my children.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you guys have been so deliberate in the structure so you can't miss each other. Talk to us about that, please.
You know, both of us are family oriented. We got married as adults. I mean, I'm not going to say how old I was, but he was just a spring chicken when we got married. But nevertheless, we believe in family.
Yeah.
Period. So much so that we are intentional about bringing our granddaughter to church and bringing her up in the ways of the Lord. It's so important that we have structure because I refuse to let the church bury my husband. I refuse to let life cause us to be separated in that way. Like, the church is what we're called to, not what we are supposed to be necessarily coveting over and spending all our time with. And so it's just so important that we spend quality time being available to one another. And that is the key, being available to one another. I know he has multiple things to do. Likewise, I do. And we still work full-time jobs. He has his own business. I work for the world-renowned Johns Hopkins, and I work. I'm a leader in my own right there. So we are extremely busy, but never too busy for one another. Never too busy. And sometimes he'll have to say, babe, I'm ready to go. It's time to go. It is perfectly okay to tell someone, you know, we'll meet with you or we'll contact you. If it's not an emergency, we'll meet with you, but put us first. Because I'm telling you, I have seen it where wives are you making faces?
No, I'm not.
Oh, all right. I've seen it where wives are neglected, you know, because the attention is focused on the congregation or the single women in the ministry or things like that. And so it's so important that we know that it's us.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's us. When something didn't go right in the church or at work or wherever on the streets as he's out advocating for Baltimore and trying to make a difference, he has me to come home to and I pour back into him. Right? If you don't build that level of relationship, then he'll be guarded. And for men, let me just say this for all the single women and all the married women that are watching. For men, they need something a little extra from their wife or even their wife to be, because our men get a bad rap. Our men get talked down to too often. So they need a safe place. They need a sanctuary. They need a heart that they can cry on that's not judgmental and not tearing them down. And so if I am not that for my husband, he'll go somewhere else and find it. Mine won't, because I'll get him. But I'm just saying in general, they will go somewhere else to find it. So it's so important, especially as African-American women, that we are giving them what they need, even if it's just being available.
I want to say this, Marvin, because you said something, and I just want to throw this out there. You were talking about being a father that's in leadership, and having that son or daughter and making sure that you don't miss time with them. So I learned balance early on. My dad was not a part of my life. I didn't have that man to teach me how to throw a football. I didn't have that man to teach me how to play catch. I didn't have that man to show up for my basketball and football games. I didn't have that man to sit down and have that birds and bees talk with. So I promised myself that when I had children, I was going to be the complete opposite. And I thank God, because when I had our son Tyler, and he was playing sports, he was in high school doing very well, and I knew that he would eventually get to college with a scholarship. And I told my spiritual father, who was my pastor at that time, when I first became elder, there came one Sunday. I said, Bishop, listen, I gotta miss service. I have to. My son is in a championship game. They're gonna have scouts there. I have to be there. And my bishop, he dropped his head. It's okay, son. I respect that. And there was a few times that I missed service because I just could not miss what was taking place in my kid's life. And I can remember one time when when we started the church, and I'll never forget. There was one Sunday that I had to preach. It was my Sunday to preach, and I always want to make sure. I didn't want to ask my wife to take my spot. I wanted to honor my assignment at home first. My son, they had a championship game. His college, he was playing college ball. He had a championship game in Delaware. The game started at 2. It was a 2.5-hour drive. Service starts at 9 o'clock. Man, listen, went in there. I was focused. I did my assignment. I mean, preaching, and the Spirit of God was falling. I said, my God, Lord, I mean, you really pouring this morning. And the people just kept on praising God. But I wanted to make sure I honored my assignment first at the church house. I jumped on the road by 11:30. I was a little late, but I did not miss his game. He looked in the stands and he saw Dad. It's very important that, and I know we say, oh, you know what, church come first. Well, you just keep on making that decision. That's your decision to make. You keep on saying church come first. The church belongs to Christ. The church is fine. So it's very important that we never miss opportunities with our children. I'm not saying take away from church time. That's not what I'm saying. But your children need to know that you are part of their lives. And I think God will honor that, as long as you don't put everything else before your marriage and before your children.
You on Live with the Chop Shop. We come to you every Thursday. Right now, we are live on Facebook and on YouTube. I want to shift a little bit. Oh, and if you like to make a donation to the channel, you can make that donation via Cash App at the Chop Shop Be More. And everything that's donated to the channel stays in the channel and goes towards the great content and production that you see. We're going to leave it running across the bottom. If you like to make a donation, none is too small and definitely none is too big. The Chop Shop Be $, the Chop Shop Be More. But I wanted to because I talk about this kind of stuff often, and we looking at Wonder Woman and Superman many times in the eyes of the believers, the eyes of those who we serve as leaders. Super Pastor Marvin got it all the time. Let Pastor Marvin get the jobs. Pastor Marvin, I'm humbled a lot of times. While I still yet don't have a wife, I do have my grandmother who has been experiencing some health issues and things on a level that we haven't dealt with before. How important is it that we in the marriage, and then we teach those who we are serving in the church to understand that Wonder Woman has a Diana Prince and Superman has a Clark Kent?
Mm-hmm. I would say, you okay? I would say to always point the people back to Christ. Get their eyes off of you and point them back to Christ.
Always.
I think that is one of the reasons why we are always so transparent, because we want them to know that this is my husband and I'm his wife, and we have a life too. It's not always behind the pulpit. It's not always answering your calls. We are assigned to do that, but we need to minister to each other. We need to minister to each other, and we help to teach and train even our married couples to do that. When they tell us they're not going to be there because they're going away with their spouse, we promote that. We don't care that the pews are empty that Sunday. No, go away with your spouse. Spend time with your spouse. We let them know that ultimately you need to look to Jesus, who is the author and the finisher of your faith. Follow us as we follow Christ, but don't put us on a pedestal because we're subject to failure. We are subject to falter. We are not perfect, nor did we get here by being perfect. We have stumbled along the way. We are very open and honest about that. Nothing about us is perfect. Nothing. We still walk with a limp. We just know how to tap in and ask the Lord to help us with the limp, literally, individually, and in our marriage. And so we're still working out our own soul salvation. So we want to make it clear that you can only follow us as we follow Christ. Don't follow us in the flesh. Don't look to us for responses in the flesh, because the reality of it is we're not perfect. We're not perfect. Don't gauge what's going on in your marriage based on ours, because that is just a fallacy waiting to happen.
It's very important. You talked about that Clark Kent piece. It's amazing because sometimes I remember one time my wife was preaching, and it was like that kryptonite. I was looking, she was preaching, and my mind was so. My mom was somewhere. Pray for me, brother. Pray for me, man. Pray for me.
Listen, I ain't praying for that. You keep it right there, brother. Keep it right there.
My seat was on the side behind her, so my mind shifted. I said, "The name would bring me back, Lord, bring me back." But let's hurry up and come on and get this service over.
Yes, sir. That's what I'm talking about.
It is what it is, bro. It is what it is. But I want to say this. You talked about having that, not feeling like you have to be that superhero. And our oldest son, Pastor Chris, who's our executive pastor of the church, he coined the phrase, and I think that was it's so important, and we see it happening right now, and it's coming to fruition, that we've got to learn how to staff our weaknesses. The problem is sometimes the pastor feels as though they have to be everything to everybody in the church. But I think I think effective leaders, they look around in certain areas and see where they need help at. Staff those areas of weaknesses. That way you can spend more time at home. You can spend more time casting vision. You can spend more time hearing from God for the people of God. But if you're the trustee, if you're the deacon, you're locking up the church, and you're the usher, and you're this, that, and the third. No, listen, the pastor is nothing more than a servant. Let me say that. We are kingdom servants, but at the same time, you need help. Staff your weaknesses and stop trying to be everything to everybody and micromanaging the church. Get some help that's going to help you focus on ministry so that you can focus on home. As I said before, that a disgruntled spouse can destroy a church. A disgruntled spouse can destroy a ministry. But when you got a happy spouse, when you got a spouse that's all in it with you, they're going to make the assignment so much easier. It's nothing like being able to look over in the corner when you're preaching and to get an amen from your wife or from your husband. Like, oh my God, preach, baby. But I tell you what, though, you can always tell when something going on. They're looking over like, I wish this nigga would just hurry.
And listen, it's evident. We all see it, Pastor. Pastor, we see it.
Have masks now, though, so you have a hard time seeing.
My grandfather told me the eyes don't lie.
Yeah, the eyes don't lie.
That's true. Mine don't.
They tell it all.
I know.
I kind of saved this part. You on again with the Chop Shop. We come to you every Thursday at 6 p.m. We live on Facebook and YouTube, and we're talking to my mentors, Pastor Shelley and Antoine Burton tonight, the pastors of Changing Lives Ministry. This is one team that I refer to as God's power couple. And we're talking about love and purpose. Valentines Day is coming. One of the favorite things that I've heard both of you speak on, preach on, talk on is Pastor Shelley's victorious. I don't even know if to call it a battle. I think cancer just like getting his butt kicked, because it comes to Pastor Shelley who just kicks the hell out of it.
Yeah.
Right. And I've heard both of you in different spaces talk about that aspect of your walk in ministry and how it impacted and impacts your marriage. Can y'all share with the people? We got about good 6-7 minutes. Shaka gonna start shooting me times in the private chat. But can y'all talk to the people about, because I've heard you talk about how that's fortified ministry, it's fortified marriage, fortified life, fortified love. Just give us a little bit of that. And don't feel restricted at all. In any way that God lays on your heart, because that's one of the things. I just have some people, and there's several of my big brothers that are in ministry, and when I look at their wives, I say, God, give me one of them. Give me that kind. And it has nothing to do with the way that they look or anything like that, but it has everything to do with what I know they bring to the table. And you guys are one of my favorites. So can we talk to us about that a little bit?
Sure. I will say that I first of all, anything that you do for God, the enemy it knows your impact before you make it. He knows the intentional impact before you make it. And I will say that we went into our marriage with knowing that I had endured cancer one time prior to the marriage, and my husband still decided to marry me. I don't know why I was his boo, but he decided to marry me. And then after we were in ministry for a few months, as a matter of fact, we were about to be ordained pastors of our church. And a few weeks later, I was diagnosed with cancer a second time, more aggressive than that of the first. And literally, doctors said that there was nothing that they could do. So here we are recently married. I said earlier, we had only been married for a year. We started a church, and now I have cancer. Okay. Or cancer was attached to me because I never claimed to having it. And so for me, it was extremely stressful, but it was easy because I was married to the right person.
Come on now.
When I really knew that this had to be God, it was when they told me I had to go rounds and rounds of chemo, but yet I was just ordained pastor. And he's like, what you doing? You still got to preach. Like he pushed me through it. And when I think about it now, it was such a blessing because it said, I believe in you, not just as my wife, but you're going to live through this because you're going to do what you're called to do. And I'm going to help you do it. And on the days that I could not lift my head up off of the table, he would say, babe, I got it this week. But on the days when I had a little extra strength, he was like, it's your turn, go forth. And even if I stumbled with my words because chemotherapy was so strong and would make me forget things, he still stood on the sidelines and cheered for me and pushed me through it. He still made sure that I had everything that I needed during that time. And it didn't just stop at the chemo, because after that, it was radiation for 30 days. And literally, third-degree burns on my chest. He still was pushing me. He still was saying, babe, we going out. I would wrap my head and we would go out. I would put on a little lip and we were good. It did not bother him that I was bald. It did not bother him that my body became distorted by the 27 surgeries that I had. What he saw was who he married, and none of that made a difference. And so I think built us in a way that we understood, number one, that we were called to this thing. We were assigned to do this thing. And no matter what the enemy tried, the Lord's stamp of approval was upon our marriage and Changing Lives Ministries of Baltimore. And nothing by any means could move us from that place. And so I think in what I suffered, I strongly believe was a sacrifice for the ministry, because after we endured it, it wasn't just me. He dealt with it his own way. As we were enduring it, we saw the lives of people really begin to change, and us and the ministry living up to the name that the Lord had given us. By groves, the ministry started growing. Why? Because we could literally walk out what it looks like to walk through adversity and still be the answer to help people come to Christ. We could walk out the opportunity that God has given us and not back up from what he called us because of the darts that were being thrown our way. We were open, we were transparent, and we continued forward. And so I think it allowed people to see that marriage can work even when adversity comes. So it definitely, when I think about it now, Pastor, it definitely blows my mind to know that we dealt with cancer twice, but in a 7-year span, we dealt with losing my daughter, cancer, deaths, my mother, people that were very dear to us, starting a ministry, very significant changes in our life. And if we could endure that, we can endure anything. So it fortified us in a way that the enemy probably hates our guts at this point and wants us to sit down and shut down. But the devil is a liar. Go ahead, talk. You ain't got nothing to say.
Yeah, but Shaka put that. Shaka.
Oh, Shaka, I'm sorry, Shaka.
But I will say that it's very important that people don't allow what they're dealing with to dictate how they respond in their assignments. It's very important. And my wife, I could not allow her to just not be who God has called her to be just because she was diagnosed with breast cancer. If in fact you're called, we're going to still serve. And because of that, people's lives were blessed because she continued to do what God has called her to do, even while dealing with breast cancer. She the champ. She the champ.
Well, I want to thank you guys for being with us tonight. Of course, this won't be the last time. Both of you guys have already had multiple appearances on the Chop Shop, and you know that the invitations are going to continue to come because you bring relevance to every dialogue that you come on. I want to also let everybody know that next week we're going to be here live again with Dr. Kevin Daniels. We're going to be talking about, what is it? Oh, my goodness. We got the flyer, bandwidth recovery. Listen, the man of God said he wants to come on and teach, and we're going to be talking about bandwidth recovery, where he's going to be talking about how we get back so much of what has been stripped away, so much of what we had to use to endure this pandemic and all of the other stressors in life. So please, 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 make sure you tune in next week for that show. Then the following week, I don't even know if I sent it, we got my friend and my brother, Bishop Brian Martin, one of the most colorful but yet articulate brothers in the kingdom. And we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about the Black church. Has her identity been compromised? Do we even recognize her in some places that we go? I don't know. We're going to have the conversation, and I believe I got the right voice to speak truth to power to it. I want to thank my producer tonight, my main man, my right hand, my left hand. Shaka Pitts, always on the ones and twos, making the magic happen. Techniques 1200, because anything else is uncivilized. And I got to thank you, our listening audience tonight. I always say if a tree falls in the woods and nobody's around to hear it, does it make a sound? Of course it does. It just was nobody there to hear it, and y'all showed up in force tonight. I just seen Pastor Burton's mom check in. We had so many people from CLM on tonight. People, Shaka want to know, do y'all counsel unwed couples? Shaka, we got the inside track.
We get calls all the time. And listen, for some of the pastors that even trust us, say, hey, yes, would you guys counsel this marriage or counsel this couple? We're honored that pastors would trust us to counsel their members and send them back home. Send them right back home. So yes,
well, listen, we got the inside track. We got to check out of here. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean out to your own understanding, because he comes first in everything. When we acknowledge him, he'll direct our paths. We love you. Look forward to seeing you next week. Always tune into the Chop Shop. See you later.